Okay, call to order the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission, January 13th, 2025 meeting. Ms. Bergami, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme,
Here.
Ms. Strain,
Here.
Mr. Billen Calhoun,
Here.
Mr. Millspaugh,
Here.
Ms. Gomes,
Here.
Ms. Gold.
Present.
And I'm here.
And who are you?
Moving on to approval, we have 3 sets of minutes. We'll start with the November 21st, 2024 meeting minutes. Could I please get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Strang. I will second. Are there any corrections? I have 2 minor ones. On line 34, the letter S needs to be added to the word adjustment. So the sentence would read, Chairman Darpino stated that these are the adjustments put forward. And then on line 105, the question I had was, what does SEWR stand for that's abbreviated?
Oh, that should be seeker.
Seeker? Okay.
We changed to a Q.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I would propose that be changed as well. Okay. Show of hands on the amendments. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay. And all in favor of adopting the 11/21/24 minutes as amended, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next up is the December 2nd, 2024 meeting minutes. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Laflamme,
Second.
second by Ms. Strang. I am going to abstain because I was not present at that meeting. Mr. Khan ran that meeting. Are there any other corrections or comments? Okay. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And 1 abstention. Okay, and last up is the December 16th, 2024 meeting minutes. A motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Strang. I will second. Any comments or corrections? I had 1 minor one. On line 299, just revise the word lux to luck. All in favor of the amendment, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And all in favor of the amended December 16th, 2024 minutes, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and the minutes are approved. Moving on, we do not have any public hearings, so we'll open it up to privilege of the floor. Anyone in attendance that would like to speak on any planning or zoning matter for the town of Niskayuna, please approach the podium. Okay, we have no one in the audience wishing to speak at privilege of the floor. Ms. Robertson, do we have anyone that is online interested in speaking at privilege of the floor?
No, we have no online and no submitted comments for this meeting.
Okay. Seeing as that there is no action on privilege of the floor, we will close privilege of the floor. There is no unfinished business, so we will move right on to new business. First up is a resolution for site plan approval for a tenant change to Consumer Cellular at 441 Balltown Road. I will read the resolution. We do not have a project lead.
For a second.
Correct. I need a second. Oh, a second by Ms. Gold. Okay. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission finds the above referenced site plan meets the requirements of the zoning code and previous site plan and zoning board of appeals approvals, and therefore hereby approves the site plan and tenant change with the following conditions. 1, code compliant signage for the property shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. Any waivers or variations of code or proposed signage shall require a full planning board review at a future date. Number 2, the health of the adjacent existing landscaping shall be reviewed by the tree council and property owner together and any dead or dying vegetation will be replanted. Do we have a representative for the project online?
Yeah, Roxanne, do you want to unmute yourself and say hello?
Hello.
Good evening.
Sorry, I was trying to connect and it wasn't connecting, and now I'm connected and it looks like maybe under my personal account. Sorry, I'm late.
Okay. Were you able to hear the two conditions for the resolution?
That the signage is under a separate permit, and I missed the other one.
The other one is the landscaping will be reviewed by the tree council, and any dead or dying vegetation will be replanted.
I don't think there's any landscaping in regard to this scope of work. Are you asking that that be included?
It's going to be part of the package that's reviewed.
Okay, I'll have to talk to the architect and the client to see. I'm sure that'll be okay. Let me try and get them on the phone while we're here on the meeting.
It's basically where the building parcels are. Any type of landscaping or any improvements that can be made that's part of that lot section is something that we generally have in our resolutions.
Okay, I'm sure it will be fine. I'm sure it will be fine.
Any other concerns or discussion items? Okay, Ms. Bergami, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Ms. Strain?
Aye.
Mr. Millspaw?
Aye.
Mr. Billen Calhoun?
Aye.
Ms. Gomes?
Aye.
Ms. Gold?
Aye.
Chairman Dorpino?
Aye, resolution's passed. Okay, good luck and looking forward to seeing the store. Okay, next up, under discussion items, a new project 2757 Aqueduct Road, Niskayuna Harbor. And this will be a PUD, planned unit development, that is going to be looking for a recommendation to the town board. We have a representative here tonight. Mr. Steenstra, would you please introduce yourself and give us a recap of the project?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening. My name is Brett Steenberg. I'm the engineer for the applicant, Niskayuna Harbor LLC. Their proposal for the Niskayuna Harbor condominium development, which would proposed to be located just to the west of Rivers Ledge. I'm sure many of you, or most or all of you, are familiar with Rivers Ledge. Matter of fact, that's one of the buildings from Rivers Ledge there. The Rivers Ledge Senior Housing, which is currently under construction, is located here. This project has actually been around for a number of years as a planned unit development. One of the hangups for the development of this project has always been the utilities in this area. And when Peter Louisi started working on Rivers Ledge, and I got involved with Mr. Louisi with the development of the low pressure sanitary sewer down Aqueduct Road, I introduced Mr. DeSaro of Niskayuna Harbor to Mr. Louisi to try to basically say, hey, listen, they've got to do sewer, you've got to do sewer. Let's come to some, agreement. And Mr. Louisi and Mr. DeSaro worked well together, and Mr. DeSaro put some money in to help Mr. Louisi run that sewer with the anticipation that there was available capacity, which there is, for this future development. So since that time, Mr. DeSaro has been, we've been working with the Army Corps of Engineers, working on, getting various aspects of this project moving forward so that we can apply to the town board for the reinstatement of the planned unit development. This project still exists on the town zoning map as a planned unit development, but which actually was the very first planned unit development in the town of Niskayuna. But it never got built. So it reverts back to the underlying zoning. The original zoning of this parcel was industrial. They changed it to residential 2 so that they could apply for a PUD back 1980s, I think. This is the late 70s, early 80s. and applied for the PUD and were granted the PUD. Now, like I said, the PUD still shows on the zoning map and the official zoning map as a PUD, but because it never got built, it is reverted back to the R2 zoning. So we need to basically resurrect the planned unit development and get it rezoned under, based on, because a PUD is a site-specific zoning. So what we've done is we've been working, like I said, with the Army Corps of Engineers. We've met with the town officials several times because there's a couple of intricate details with this project, similar to Rivers Ledge, that this project has to overcome. As you can see, outlined in red are the property boundaries owned by Niskuna Harbor LLC. There's several utility right-of-ways and the Mohawk Hudson bike path, which bisect the property. There's a gas line and overhead utilities that run through the site, creating this hodgepodge. And I can't forget the Erie Barge Canal that runs through the site. So the hodgepodge of things bisecting the site, which make it a little more difficult to to develop, and offers a couple of hurdles. Some of those hurdles, and we've worked with Ms. Robertson and the town, would be the crossing over the bike path was probably one of the largest. And the reason that was one of the largest is even though this parcel, and we have in the deeds, this parcel, they had deed access over what was the railroad. And that was supposed to be in perpetuity. The railroad is now the Hudson River Bike Path, but Parks and Recreation will not grant those deeded accesses to a private entity. So we need to basically establish an easement or right of way for the town down to that crossing. And the town, there'd be a maintenance agreement through the town that Niskuna Harbor would maintain that road. They're going to build it to town spec, but they're going to maintain that portion of the road but the town will hold that easement and that crossing over the bike path. And that's how Parks and Recreation require it. This was done in 2 other locations on Rivers Ledge. The unique thing about this parcel, that Rivers Ledge actually had access to Aqueduct Road. Everything on the north side of the bike path has no access to Aqueduct Road without crossing that bike path in some location. And again, Mr. DeSaro, in reviewing and looking forward to knowing that he's going to have issues, knowing that this number of units generates under the New York State Building Code the need for 2 ingress and egress locations, established an emergency ingress and egress to Rivers Ledge so that he has that ability to get in and out and meet the New York State Fire Code, so that we didn't need 2 access points and run into that. So we've done everything in our power to minimize that. With regard to the utility crossings, we have in the deed, in our deeds, and we've provided the town with that, a plethora of easements that are granted from that parcel, because when they came in, they took and put in the utilities and said, hey, listen, we know you're going to need to access your property. Those are going to be merged together, and those are going to have to be ultimately executed for this one crossing that'll cross both the bike path and utility crossings at grade. One of the reasons that we're showing the road to come in and down is because we want to access it at grade and not have to change that alignment of that bike path in any way, either vertically or horizontally, so that we can keep it as the impacts as minimal as possible. So all that being said, we're working on resurrecting the planned unit development. And what we're looking to do is, unlike Rivers Ledge, which are apartments, we're looking for sale condominiums. We feel that that's actually a good transition, which would help provide a mix of housing units. You've got the rental units, and now you've got some smaller, less expensive for sale units, starting between 325, maybe going up to maybe even as high as 750,000, depending upon how luxurious the builder decides to make them. We've met with Metroplex over the past year to talk to them about it. They were very excited about this type of housing in the town of Niskuna, because it provides a business class type of for sale housing for people who maybe so that they can attract businesses to downtown Schenectady, to the business parks in Niskayuna. It gives those people a place when they want to buy a house. They don't want maintenance. They don't want the 2-acre lawn or even the half-acre lawn to mow. They want to be able to, come in, excuse me, to a come home and have their property taken care of, which that condominium living offers that. This type of housing also offers a great opportunity for people to downsize in the community that maybe don't want to pay the monthly rent of an apartment and downsize to one of the absolutely gorgeous apartments that are at Rivers Ledge, but want to actually still own their own place, but maybe spend 5-6 months down south and then have their place up here in the north and where they've lived their entire life. That's what we tend to find in this type of development. Consequently, we also don't find a lot of school-age children with this type of development. I've done several of them in Rotterdam. I know the one which has 60 units, they have 3 children picked up each day, and the other one that has 40, I think also has 3 children picked up each day because they're a little bit larger units. So there isn't a huge generation or draw on the school system. It also is not a draw on the town tax base because all of the infrastructure, the roads, the water, the sewer, they're all privately maintained. However, the town will still collect the water and sewer fees as they would with any single family residence, but they don't have the infrastructure construction that they will have to maintain in perpetuity on this site. This will all be privately maintained through the homeowners association and through the homeowners association dues. What we're proposing are 3 different types of condominium units. The ones immediately along Aqueduct Road, because if you're familiar with Aqueduct Road, it tapers pretty significantly from Aqueduct Road down to that bike path in that location. So you've got a pretty good grade drop. Those 6-unit buildings are the same 6-unit buildings that are across the street here, next, almost directly across, just next to the library, the first set that you go up from the library, where you have a few garage units out front and then a couple of garage units in the back. Again, every unit has its own garage. Plus there'll be some, accessory parking around the site. And then these 4 units would obviously probably be the initial phase, the starting phase for phase 1 of the project. And then moving as you go into the site a little bit further to the north, we're looking at developing a number of 4-unit buildings throughout the site. We like the 4-unit buildings a lot, and it's what we're finding sells very, very well all over the Capital District. I've done probably over 300-400 of them in the Capital District over the past 15-20 years through various projects that I've been involved with. Is those units, you've got your own garage space. There's 2 units up and 2 units down. So what that gives each one of the residents that chooses to purchase one is 3 exterior walls. What we found with condominiums over the years is you always sold the end units. The middle units were always a hard sell because you had that front wall and that back wall, and then you had 2 common walls. In these particular cases, you have a common floor and a common wall, or common ceiling and a common wall. So you've got those 3 exterior walls, which give you a lot of natural light, give you a lot of windows. And again, your own garage space. We have shown quite a bit of off-street parking around the site, which tends to be used for overflow visitors, that type of stuff. What I found on other developments that I've been involved with is, people get a visitor come, their own vehicles are parked in their driveway and in their garage. And then, if they have a visitor come, the visitor can park in the off-street parking space rather than parking along the road or trying to crowd in the driveway. Just gives a little more flexibility. The third type of unit would be the 10-unit big house condominium styles, which would be kind of facing the river and along this side. Those units are similar in style and design to what you see up at Fly Point condominiums. Those large big house, they call them the big house because they look like a gigantic house, lots of gables, but again, every unit has its own garage space. I'm I'm not as familiar with this plan on exactly, how many exterior walls, but I do know they sell well because of the design. The Saratoga County is loaded with these. I know Niskayuna has, Bly Point. They sell very well with that design. So all in total, there will be 200 condominium units on the site. Again, we feel that this is going to offer a very to help increase the diversity of the housing stock in the town. Niskayuna has, we have a lot of apartments that have gone in recent years. A lot of luxury apartments that have gone in recent years. Rivers Ledge has been incredibly successful. But we're missing that new housing stock that maybe isn't the $750,000 house. I mean, when you look at what was Kelt's Farm, that development, those houses are starting, I think they're duplexes, they're starting over $600,000 for duplex type residences. And, it's tough to bring in young professionals for purchase and for sale at that price rate. So we feel, given the location, given the proximity, that this would be a great benefit to the town. Now, this section of land is owned by the Barge Canal. It's actually the former Erie Canal. Beautiful, actually, when you go down in there. You can actually still see the canal bed. You could still see the tow path. It really is. And what I don't know, and I've tried studying and tried researching it, this must have been some sort of pull off in here where you see these wetland area, which isn't part of the Barge Canal property, but it must have been you could actually see where the tow path goes up and around. Must have been some sort of backwater where they would put some of the barges waiting to get across the aqueduct. I'm not sure, but I'm theorizing that was what the purpose of that location was. So there's some historical opportunity or historical significance with this portion of the property. We're proposing to convey all of this property, which is approximately 11 acres, just over 11 acres in size, to the town for the continuation of Aqueduct Park, which, butts here with Rivers Ledge and continues down to the boathouse. About 9 acres of those 11.2 acres are upland areas. It's not all wetland. It's actually could be developed if we wanted to pursue the potential for crossing the park land fee. We feel would be best suited to retain that as, a natural area for the residents to enjoy in perpetuity as part of the parkland for the town. The wetlands on the site, you can kind of see them shaded a little bit darker. Those are currently delineated Army Corps wetlands. I'm sure all of you are hearing about all of the new DEC regulations, and we're all trying to wrap our heads around what's going on with that, how that's going to affect every project. If you ask me today how that's going to affect this project, I don't know the answer, and we won't know until we get DEC on site. It's not mapped as DEC. It's not in any of their mapping. We do know that. What we don't know is if they are going to try to establish this as part of their mapping, if they see it as critical enough. It's kind of unique because a lot of it doesn't directly drain to the Mohawk, or kind of is circuitous and is just low areas. We've got that actually nice pond that exists on the site. That pond is existing. So it's we don't know, and we won't know probably for, I don't know until we get somebody out there. I've heard that there's anywhere from 4 to 6 people at DEC that are now heading up this wetland, and they're going to cover the entire state. So we can see what the timeframes are going to be with trying to coordinate that. But I know our wetland biologist, who is North Country Ecological Services, Steve George, who is, in my opinion, one of the best in the area, is on task with making sure that we comply with that. Again, we actually met with Adam from the Army Corps on site because we wanted to get the determination out of a couple areas that we felt were isolated wetland areas, and they concurred with our evaluations and decided that they were not Army Corps wetlands, so they've been taken off the map as wetland boundaries. I'll go briefly through the criteria for a planned unit development. And I think we meet all of the criteria except for the first one, which is the minimum of 50 contiguous acres. However, the town board may choose to reduce this if the applicant demonstrates character and development meets the intent of the code. This parcel itself, the property that is actually controlled by Niskayuna Harbor LLC, is around 42 acres. If you look at the parcel as a whole, it's actually much greater than that because you have all these utility and right-of-ways that run through there. And there has been precedent that smaller parcels, River's Ledge was about 30 acres. So it actually adds as a continuum for the River's Ledge almost PUD, even though they're separate applicants. And we feel that the town board will look favorably upon that. The whole parcel needs to be controlled by a single person or corporation, and it is by Niskayuna Harbor LLC. They actually, in recent years, purchased one of the two remaining houses out front. They have been unable to purchase this house, just to try to, make it so that it was all inclusive and, we didn't have neighbors that might be impacted in any way, but have been unable to do that, purchase that last house. PUD is only considered in an R1 and R2 district. As I stated in the opening, this has defaulted back to the R2 district. Residences may be a variety of types. We're proposing all for sale condominiums, but they are going to be in a variety of housing structures to offer the widest variety of stock that we can and the widest variety of price ranges that we can to the future people. Non-residential uses may be permitted but are not required. We're not proposing any non-residential uses. I don't think it's conducive to the area really to have commercial uses in this particular location. I think what River's Ledge has done with the diner and stuff is great, but I think anything, I don't think, having a Dunkin' Donuts out along Aqueduct Road in this particular location is really conducive to the overall character of that location. The land use intensity may be increased by 30% of the base zoning code, being that the base zoning code is R2. Just running some quick numbers, we could develop up to 209 units. We're proposing 208 units with that 30% increase. We're proposing 200 units. So we're within that 30% increase. Common property, we have approximately 46% open space on the property for common use by the residents, plus the 11.2 acres that we'll be conveying to the town for the continuation of Aqueduct Park. Again, just in closing, we're here seeking a positive recommendation from this board to the town board to reinstate what was once a PUD on this parcel, to continue with a PUD. And we think that this project, we've spent a lot of time, we've done a lot of concepts on it. We think that this project would be beneficial to the town, the county, and surrounding areas.
Thank you for the summary. I'm going to open this up to discussion. So one of the things that's transpired is the CAC did meet in January on the 8th. They have a recommendation letter in here looking at a few things and corresponds a little bit with some of my notes here. So the wetlands and the new regulations that have come out that are effective at the beginning of this year, do you know what that impact is on the new setbacks yet?
We don't.
Okay.
And we won't know until DEC actually is on site, because the way that the wetland regulations are written, and they're written very vague, and I've read them over multiple times, they're not as cut and dry as Army Corps regulations where, hey, you meet these 3 criteria, you're considered a wetland. Well, we may want to consider this wetland if it has some significant importance to something we feel is important. And it's very vague and very arbitrary. So what it's doing is it's allowing DEC to say yes or no to many of the of what they want to do. And we are, actively working to get to that point. Even if we do, depending on how those pan out, and if, the wetland areas do require 100-foot buffers or 50-foot buffers, whatever it's deemed. And again, those regulations are also being phased in from my understanding as well. So not everything is being effective year 1. I think it's a 4-year phase in. We'll be working through that with the planning and seeker process.
Another item was the amount of open space and access to the river.
Yeah.
So right now, I know that there's a large parcel on the north end that's going to be deeded to the town, proposed to be deeded to the town. There seems to be just very limited green space that would be utilized by the residents that are here. So if you look at, you got a couple small pocket areas, and the area around the pond doesn't have a lot of open space around that.
It's in what way do you like? Are you referring to like a park around the pond or something like that? And that's certainly something we can look into developing. To be honest with you, we're trying to minimize the amount of clearing as much as possible because it actually is beautiful forested area. More of my thought to that point would be walking trails through the woods, a more natural approach than a clearing and active open space recreational area. We are showing, a walking path from the bike path down to the property that would ultimately access the park. I know in previous iterations, we've also shown parking areas out front, and that's something we would be working with Laura and the town if they feel that the bike path needs a parking area. But I think as we progress through the design, I think I would look at, some walking paths through some of the natural areas. The pond is beautiful, and I would like to clean up the shorelines of the pond, figure out how we can utilize the pond as a feature on the site, and have that open space and have walking paths around that as well. But
Okay.
not so much as like you have this large green area here. I don't think cutting down those trees really meets with the character of what we're trying to do on this site.
I think you just answered the question, but a question I had prior, let me have you actually answer it.
Yes.
Why are the homes so densely located to the southwest?
Because there is some substantial wetland areas in here. So rather than impacting those wetland areas, and as you can see, they're pretty irregular shaped. So rather than trying to, impact them and create off spurts of roads, we've kind of focused the development in the non-wet area of the site. And
So that was the primary, and like you said, perhaps it's also to maintain more of the growth.
maintain more of the existing forested vegetation along the site, and create these large areas of undisturbed area throughout the parcel as well.
Are there a lot of grade changes like there are at Rivers Ledge?
Not as substantial. The majority of the grade change actually is between the bike path and Aqueduct Road. Once you get on the site, it gently tapers down until you get to the Barge Canal property, and then it drops down in, and then it comes back up, and then it drops down pretty substantially towards the river. It does sit up a little bit higher than I think I don't know. Well, I wouldn't say it sits up that much higher than Rivers Ledge, but there isn't that substantial where you're going to require retaining walls and such like at Rivers Ledge.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, more procedural maybe for Laura. Assuming that this project gets approved by the town board, it does come back to us at some point for further development.
Oh yeah, can I actually clarify that? This is a letter that they're required to write to the town board that allows them to make a PUD application. So you can look at the details, but you do not have to. You're really just deciding whether or not you would recommend to the town board to allow a PUD application on this parcel. And I think the reason for that is they're trying to, like, a PUD is a flexible zone. It has a lot of, different things. And if the town board is just not interested, then there's a little like relief valve in the code that says you have to get permission from the town board before you even make an application.
Okay.
So these are just concept plans. They haven't even made an application for a PUD yet.
Okay.
They want to.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Another question along those lines. Brett, do you know if the original PUD included lands beyond this? Was it over 50 at the time?
No, it was just this parcel.
Yeah, and if I may, on those lines, I have no problem with a recommendation for a PUD, just for the fact that it was previously considered for a PUD. But on the zoning map, it shows that the prior PUD didn't span the entire parcel. Thus, the left side of the page there, right around there, that cursed area, is shown as land conservation on the zoning map. So I think it would be beneficial if we're able to see what the prior PUD was.
I did get that comment from you. I will get the old PUD maps. They are not scanned because they were too big for that time. So I have to go down into the basement and I'll bring them up and then we'll scan them so that you guys can see that.
I believe the original PUD included a marina.
It did.
It did.
Actually, the original PUD had a restaurant out on the water,
Yep.
a hotel.
Yeah.
It was based on an EIS that I think would have to be considered outdated at this point.
Well, it did not take into account any wetlands whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess along those lines, just procedurally, there's, I read the narrative and the statements that it hasn't been built, so it reverts to the R2, but I didn't see anything in the code about PUDs expiring or about them reverting to the prior zoning. So just procedurally, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't another action that the town board had to do to like negate that zone, the PUD, or to just actually not revert it and just replace it with a new one.
I
Yeah.
believe there was actually a letter notifying the owner that it was considered a defunct application. Quite a number of years ago, actually.
It was just odd that the zoning map isn't
They-
updated to reflect that if it was that long ago.
My
Yeah,
recollection is there had been a renewal to keep it alive, and that timed out.
Yeah, I don't think, I'm not sure why or where or when it timed out. We just know that based on Ms. Robertson's research that it's no longer effective.
Yeah, I can get that all to you guys.
It's a big file.
It's a big.
It is a big file.
It is a very big file. There have not been a whole lot of zone changes in the town of Niskuna since the 80s, and actually, there's a number of areas on the Sims map that are not the correct zoning. So the Sims map is good, but it's not the official zoning map.
Yeah, even the one on the website though shows the same thing, land conservation.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
just looked, but
yeah.
it used to. I think they have updated it because no, they still don't. So I mean, it also shows the Amador development is still research and tech develop. The Harmon Grove is still showing as research and development industrial. There's just some issues with online zoning, but I still think we will need to check the boundaries. Just to make sure, because it's not hard if the boundaries don't quite match up to make sure that they match. And then, I can get all the information to the board on the old one and the expiration.
Yeah, actually, one of the maps shows this parcel as being Aqueduct Park, and I forget which map it is. It might be Sims. Things are not exactly what they seem down there. I'm almost certain that this parcel, because it's been owned by the same applicants of Niskuna Harbor, I'm almost certain, other than the one house he purchased out front, I think the property bounds are the same as what the PUD was initially.
And I have a question regarding how many units are actually allowed. We've talked in the past about not allowing wetlands to be counted towards the acreage that could be used. And I don't know that we ever resolved that issue, but I have a hard time justifying more units based on the overall size when I know that a fair portion of that can't support housing.
There's two, and I understand your point, Ms. Gold. There's actually two schools of thought on that. One of the school of thought is with the cluster subdivision, it's similar to a cluster, although this is not. With cluster subdivisions, that's the intent of a cluster subdivision, is to review it so that you can maintain critical open space and cluster the homes so you're not building on areas that could potentially be environmentally sound. And this is when you look at the density situations, I think that's the way the Niskayuna code is written, because I don't see anything in the code that precludes wetlands. I don't even think there's anything in the code that precludes steep slopes, which some towns do, when making that density determination.
Yeah, I can double check for you guys. I think for the density determination, it isn't included. It is included for the definition of open space. Like, they're not allowed to consider undevelopable land as open space being dedicated to the town. And the steep slopes aren't allowed to be developed in our soil erosion and sediment control chapter, but I don't think that they count. I mean, I'll double check for you, but I don't think it counts for the density.
Yeah, it would be good to double check. I mean, I would agree with Ms. Gold that, typically when you're making the comparison, and obviously this is so initial that, if this moves forward, we'd be reviewing this when it comes in. But when you're looking at a overall, like what you could develop, I think pretty common practice is you take out the constrained land and you take out a reduction factor for roads and stormwater, and then that's your available land to develop, and you use that with your density, which I suspect will be less than 209. But at this stage, I don't think it really matters.
I agree with that, but I think whether we've got a constraint provision in now or not is something we really need to look at, because to me, this is just too intense a development. It's a lot of units.
Hi, everyone. Chuck Bufundi, representative of the ownership group. So one of the things I'd add too on the density is this product is being approached in a sense of trying to meet an end user for sale, which what we're trying to accomplish here is the density also drives the reduction in the infrastructure costs for the for sale units. So this product, different than Rivers Ledge, is not going to be as much of a luxury product with high rent structures or high purchase values. What we're trying to accomplish here in this development is like workforce middle class, your teachers, firefighters, police officers, people that as interest rates climbed and inflation has taken over where they can't afford a $750,000 home. This is in reach, a condo price structure. The density is what they're looking for in a sense, because it drives down the cost for the end user and the for sale exercise of the pro forma. So I just wanted to add that point too, is aside from just looking at this from a civil approach on usable property and whether or not we're trying to avoid wetlands and whether there's better vantage points or anything like that, this is also trying to meet the intentions of serving a useful function for the county, town, for where a lot of, affordability is a new word now. It's not subsidized anymore, right? It's transformed into looking at workforce housing and, middle class housing as well. So I just wanted to bring that point forward.
It may be premature, and it may actually not be part of the purview of this board. However, if we're going to look at the land percentage, as Ms. Gold pointed out, the wetlands maybe not be calculated in. If the benefit is we have a broader range of affordable homes and perhaps a higher frequency of affordable within that sample, I'd like to see that percentage. Like, in other words, I'd prefer to not be supporting a project that has a range of 3 to 7 and only 2, 3 gets built and mostly 7s. So I don't know if we can even, that financial model is not really for us to determine, but I would just like to put it out there that we'll be looking at that,
Yes, sir.
because the affordability part in this area, given the circumstances you stated, would be meaningful to these ownership type opportunities.
Absolutely.
And the other question I want to ask is the adjacency to the rifle range. Is this property adjacent to the rifle range, or is there a separation there? Or do you even know?
I'm not sure.
I honestly don't know.
No, it's not adjacent.
Okay.
The rifle range is actually adjacent to the what's the company that does Jackson Demolition?
Demolition.
Yeah, it's adjacent to Jackson Demolition. There's a Burmaster on some land between that and here. It's a little ways.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to make sure you were aware.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's news to me.
Well,
I
I think one of the things that we've seen from, obviously with Rivers Ledge completion is that there are opportunities to have specific amenities such as, multi-use paths or sidewalks that could be, integrated in there. And this is very preliminary. Whether or not there's some sort of connection to the river, or, it'd be also nice to see at some point, if this moves forward, is to take a snapshot of this aerial, but let's go 3 times out. Let's look at the length of that north end of Aqueduct Road and see how this one fits in with some of the other density that's already taken place there. Because there's this is obviously a good opportunity to develop that land. But again, we'd want to see something that's obviously going to be successful, something that the town's going to need. But what does it integrate for those residents there?
Understood. That's actually, we can certainly provide that.
In the same vein, I know this isn't, again, what we're looking at, but I think it is not reasonable to think that there will be no children in there
No,
because things happen, right? But so if that's the case, then is there some accommodation for children? I mean, even in the most minuscule respect. So just something to kick around.
absolutely. And all of these items, I shouldn't say all of these, a lot of these items we will be discussing in length as we progress this plan through the planning board process and through Ms. Robertson's office, and trying to make sure that we provide a plan that the town is happy with, that we feel is good. And those are all really good ideas. And I absolutely agree with you, Ms. Strang, that some amenities on site for that type of use would be something. Right now, we're here this evening because we can't even really start that process.
I understand.
And if the town board isn't going to accept our application for a PUD, we have to take a couple steps back and figure out what's going to happen at that point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do any of the buildings include elevators?
No, they're all 2-story.
So just to remind the board, this is a pretty accelerated schedule for the review that we have. I believe we have to make a recommendation by the next board meeting, correct?
Yeah, because you have 30 days.
Okay. So in that timeline, I emailed everyone on the board. I think this would be a good opportunity for co-leads on this project. If anyone's interested, we should talk about that relatively soon. And I do know in between, the end of this meeting and the next meeting, there are a few things we'd like the planning department to review just about the zoning items that were brought up here tonight. I think that's due diligence that we should take a look at that. And then in the interim, talk about getting a recommendation ready here to get voted on the next meeting.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Having been-
And if it is all possible to, in between the next meeting, Laura, we made the development presentation that we had packaged together. It was like a multi-slide PowerPoint. I think that would also kind of illustrate the development vision that we had put forward to explain what I was talking about prior. as well.
I didn't think I have that electronic.
We'll get that sent over to you.
And you can share that with us?
Yeah, I have a hard copy of it. I don't think it was ever sent electronically because they made a little binder.
Oh, I see.
It was.
It's all scanned though, Laura. We have that.
Oh, we scanned it? Okay, thanks, Claire.
Oh, beautiful.
I think we also mapped out the whole path going forward with the PUD that we can provide too.
Thank you, Chuck.
I think it would be helpful if
Clark.
the wetlands were indicated more clearly.
I'm sorry, what was that? Yeah, they're a little more clear on the black and white map.
Yeah, the ones in
Okay.
the one in the packet is actually pretty good
If I
because
blow it up.
yeah, it's electronically.
We
it
can
does.
get you a full-size copy of the plan. Matter of fact, I think there were full-size copies of the plan delivered with the application, with the package. That'll show those pretty clearly.
My printer is very limited.
Yeah.
Standard size, legal size, and that's about it.
It's all this gray.
I'll agree.
Okay, any other questions or comments for the applicant?
If this does come back,
Mhm.
assuming it will, I'd be glad to be co-lead with someone.
As well.
Oh, okay, great. So
Sounds good.
there are your project
I
leads.
appreciate you looking forward to working with both of you.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your time this evening. And if you have any questions and relay them to Ms. Robertson, she knows how to get in touch with me. We can try to answer them as quickly as possible before the next meeting because of the short time frame associated with you having to come together with some sort of decision.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. No further discussion items, so we'll move on to reports. Turn it over to Clark and Laura.
I don't have anything specific to report unless you guys have any questions. The town board is holding a second public hearing tomorrow night on the potential changes to the short-term rental code.
Yeah, you circulated the CAC memo on that. Does
Yeah.
this board want to have any discussion or make any statement to the town board or
So,
not?
yeah, the CAC did that on their own, and this board could certainly do that as well. There is time between now and the next town board meeting if the planning board wanted to put together some kind of a memo to the town board. I do think from internal discussions, there's some drive to at least present for a vote, basically the code that the planning board has developed. And then if that doesn't go through, we may be looking at what's happening on the second public hearing. Still up in the air a little bit, but we will be talking about it at the agenda meeting tomorrow, prior to the public hearing, actually. But we had a very robust discussion on the changes at the Economic Development Committee meeting. And I think that at least the chairman, John Delarada of the Economic Development Committee meeting, is right now his preference is to return the code to basically what the planning board put forward, and then see if it can pass a vote. I think you guys all knew, I think I told you, the cap on the bedrooms was determined to be illegal, and that was removed, so that would remain removed. But basically the rest of the town code that the planning board had proposed through its public hearings and hard work would at least be proposed for a vote.
So just to confirm, so that's going to be proposed to see if the board at the town board as a whole votes in accordance to what they recommended, which was against ours.
So correct, yes.
Okay.
The town board called for a public hearing on some significant changes to the code, which will be held tomorrow night.
Yep.
Those changes are highlighted in red in the December 17th packet.
Mhm.
And that public hearing has already been called for, so they do need to hold it. But I think that we probably have an idea of what that public comment will be. And then the question is, after that, coming from the Economic Development Committee, there'll likely be a resolution in support of the planning board version. I don't know if it'll pass, though.
The changes for the hearing tomorrow night include getting rid of the hosted. striking there shall only be one short-term rental permit per property. Deleting the extra language about the primary contact.
The big thing is it removes the hosted versus unhosted,
Yeah.
and it removes the prohibition on guests.
Yeah, and I said in my comment back to you that I think, at least from the following this, I feel like the hosted unhosted distinction is one of like the single most important aspects of that code.
Right.
And you look at the PUD application, and granted that's a different neighborhood model than, you know, the single home models, but if you don't have that distinction, this could be a place for people to have short-term rentals for like the casino and you know, things like
Yeah.
that.
Without a cap.
And you build the affordable units, they're easier for one company to buy up
That's
and then
right.
rent as,
Right.
and then you don't have affordable units in your
Bingo.
neighborhood anymore. Yeah. I mean, I try really hard not to speak out of turn, but I do tell the town board that I'm speaking from myself. Summary of what I feel the planning board feels is that they wouldn't be supportive of the unhosted versus hosted being removed, and that would be coming back. I have passed that on, even though I didn't actually get your permission to do that.
Well, technically.
I put guide rails on what I say.
No recommendation.
But that was discussed at the Economic Committee Development meeting, which I attended, and it was supported by the chairman of the CAC. So in conjunction with that, we relayed that not only to the supervisor and Mr. Delarada, we went through each of those 7 bulleted items. 2 are very intertwined with each other, of the reasoning why we felt they should remain. And it was received well, I think, and that's what's got this timeline moving the way that it is currently.
My feeling is very strongly that if they go with the proposed version that's, you're holding the hearing on tomorrow night, then it would need a positive declaration.
I believe that would be the case with the CAC. Correct. They put that in writing.
So that I think that's the way that the CAC was leaning, but they didn't actually want to say that unless they were able to re-review and go through the questions.
Well, I sort of mentally did that exercise over the weekend, so I know where I stand on it.
Thank you.
I did say this before. I mean, we had our own differences of opinion on what code was best for the town, but I believe that all differences of opinion on what code is best for the town come from because we love it and we care. And, I know that it can be frustrating when the differences of opinion are really difficult to resolve, but it all does come from a place of just absolutely trying to do the best and loving your town, which we can feel very lucky for.
I don't disagree with those who would prefer we simply not allow the short-term rentals. However, I don't think that would be legally viable. Therefore, I wanted a reasonable compromise. And I think what we proposed to the town board meets that.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it too. It's been a long process. We'll see what happens. Public hearing tomorrow night, and then potential action at the end of January. We'll see what that vote brings, and then we'll have more information for you guys at the end of January.
Anything more on the February 5th training?
Okay, yes. So the actual, you can actually sign up for it now. I know Suyi was interested in going. I got a number. I can't remember if it's Nancy. There was a number of people who said they wanted to go, but I couldn't sign them up yet because that was a save the date. So I'll go back through my emails, but if you know that you wanted to take the February 5th email, just ping me. I'll start signing people up and paying for everybody. It is a great training, and it is open now for registration.
Are they making parking arrangements for us?
I don't know. I'll look. It's a pain in the butt. Last time, I think they were having people, because they built that parking garage that's almost directly connected to the Civic Center.
Last time I was able to go, which was 2 years ago, they said we would be able to use that, but that was 2 years ago. And with their new parking rules and all, I don't know what.
Well, I think even 2 years ago, it wasn't quite open. I think it actually works okay now to park in that new parking for the Civic Center. Did it work okay last year,
Yeah,
Chris?
well,
Yeah.
it did, but I understand what Mrs. Cole is saying, but I do think that overall the parking has improved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot more accessible, that whole back area, Maple.
And I'm willing to carpool if anybody's interested.
Anything else on reports? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, Chairman Darpino, we
Go
did have another project come in late, so it was too late to be on the agenda, but we said we would mention it under reports, and that's for 412 Balltown Road. Currently Pure Bar would be a tenant change to a Dave's Hot Chicken. I guess it's a chicken restaurant chain from the West Coast. And they have, it's a pretty straightforward tenant change, but they have some pretty bold signage and even facade work proposed. So that's the lead for the package for the next meeting. You'll be expecting something on that.
Okay, great. We'll take a look at that when it comes in.
Oh, there is? Yeah, so it's a
Yeah.
splash. It's the splash of primary colors.
Oh, I don't think that fits.
No, you need to do waivers if you want to allow it.
That's a big question. Do we expect Chase to come back anytime soon?
So wait, can you say that so that Claire can hear? Because he's a super researcher. So he says that there's one in Albany
There is.
on Western.
Is there? Okay.
so maybe-
Good.
That's, I mean, it's
Field
not
trip.
super close, but we might be able to drive by. Or if you were in Albany between now and then, you could drive by and just take a look at it.
My
Sure.
daughter's home from college, and we can send them on a mission. They're more than happy to go.
To take pictures.
They've gone there several times.
Yeah, we don't all have to schlep over there to see it. Yes, that sounds good.
I can put her on a mission. Okay.
Do we think Chase is coming back anytime soon?
Yeah. We have emailed them. We just need the two things we asked from at the last meeting was the 4,000K lighting plan and the landscaping, which they said they were working on. We just haven't received it yet.
And if they can't find a place for us to go look at, they could always send a suitable socket with a plug and give us the lamp to put in, and we'll see how white it is or isn't.
Yeah, we did that at Pelvius.
Yeah, and driving around, I've been looking at ATMs at night,
For color temperature?
and I feel like they're all the really white,
Mhm.
like, yeah.
Well, it's safer and it makes for more accurate paperwork in their little system.
Okay.
Because people wait till they're there to fill out paperwork sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I thought we had a good discussion and the board, to get the updated lighting plan for the brighter light, just to see how different it was, and then maybe mitigate that with a little landscaping. So you have true color.
Anything else, Clark?
No, I think we're all set.
Okay, great. Moving on to commission business. Any commission business from any board members? I have a couple things. I just wanted to let the board know that the comprehensive plan has been meeting. They're still working on some of the updates, going a little bit longer than I think the initial schedule had anticipated. They did get a consultant on board that can help with some of the sections. You will see that plan in some sort of draft form probably some point later this year. That is something that is very important to us, obviously. So when you do get the draft of that, when it does come out, you're going to see that it's the same format. I believe it's the 7 sections, but a substantial increase in information. Currently, they're working on the historic preservation section, working on a database inventory of actual homes and listing them as an appendix. A few things that we've learned over the past decade or so, which would be helpful for us. And the other thing that got a really good feedback was we're looking to establish a committee to inventory the Paul Schaefer homes in town. Let's see, Mr. Delarada said he would sponsor that resolution, so I drafted an outline. That is going to be done with some community residents that live in Schaefer homes. There is another one that is doing some of his own legwork that would be part of that. And then they're also going to work in conjunction with the Architectural Review Board designees. So we're trying to get some community membership and committees to work on this project and to ultimately get a local recognition and have that information be part of the comprehensive plan as well.
Are we going to use the internet for that? And let people self-report?
So the initial step would be to start walking the neighborhoods in the spring just to get a listing of the either known Schaefer homes or Schaefer inspired homes. There would be a mailing that would go out to those listings, and that would start the broadcasting the net of trying to see who knows what. From there, there would be information that would be a home base of town hall, and it would be a Google Drive or some sort of thing where it would strictly be the listing of the address, the owners, and just exterior information, no interior information, anything like that.
So we're not going to capture all the idiosyncrasies of them.
Well,
My understanding is almost all of them have one or more.
yeah. So down the road, after the database listing is really, because that's the key components of the comp plan that needs to go into the historic section. From there, that committee could form their own local group. They could meet at the Kelly Adirondack Center. They could then exchange information on contractors. They could get a plaque system going with. There's definitely going to be something further, but right now, just getting the database done, and then the goal, hopefully towards the end of this year, just to get the local recognition by the town that these houses are a contributing part of these communities would be the first step.
I think it's a great project.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of the owners, if they know the history, are very happy to share it.
They are.
Former chair, now late, former chair, Bill Hendricks, loved talking about their Schaefer home
Mhm.
and its idiosyncrasies.
When I started this several years ago, just as a small pet project, I would go to a neighborhood with the intention of walking 2 or 3 streets. The first door or the first person I saw was 45 minutes to an hour. I only got 2 or 3. It was a great way to spend a Saturday afternoon, but it's just, like you said, they're so happy to talk about them. And it's great when you see ones that are really, really preserved well. And then others will talk about what they're doing to try to revert them back, or some of the things that they've done that are additions that are good and tastefully done. Overall, you do see very good stewards of these homes, and they're very passionate about them. So, great. Okay. No other commission business? Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Okay. By Ms. Gold and second by Ms. Strang. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and meeting is adjourned at 8:07 PM. Thank you.